Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm your host, Kevin Keatsman, with you for the next hour leading up to the Vince Show on this Friday. We're going to be a little football heavy as the Chiefs are playing some football tonight at Arrowhead Stadium, but not for a while. We got some good stuff right here at the start of the broadcast about everything swinging our way. We'll hear from Andy Reid. We'll play a clip from Andy Reid from his news conference earlier in the week as the Chiefs are getting ready to play the Bears 7:20 tonight on Channel 41 if you're not headed to Arrowhead Stadium for that game. At 10:30, I'm going to play a couple clips from my podcast for you. Stan Weber is my guest every week on Kevin Keatsman Has Issues, my podcast, and we do kind of a weekend football preview. Sometimes he's on Mondays. We do them after Chiefs games and do the complete post game, but sometimes it's a preview. And this week, in fact, today it's up. The podcast is up at kkasissues.com if you want to go hear it. Stan is there talking about everything in college football. This is week 0 for college football is what they call it, because the real start of college football is next weekend. But K-State and KU play this week. Missouri does not. There's really like only 5 games this weekend. But we're going to ask Stan his thoughts on K-State and Iowa State playing in Dublin at 11 o'clock tomorrow, and then KU opening its new David Booth Memorial Stadium. Man, the videos and the tours that people have taken, it looks spectacular. Not 100% done. They still have half of it to go, but the first half looks phenomenal. They are sold out and waiting for Fresno State. I think that's going to be a long, long night for Fresno State. Just a hunch. So we'll hear from Stan Weber on those 2 games coming up in, about 30 minutes or so. And then we'll finish up today with Mark Van Sickle, who does his college football picks every Saturday morning on KCMO Talk Radio, and his pro picks every Sunday morning. He had a stunning college football record against the spread last year. Just shocking. And as good as he is, I'm going to ask Mark, what I don't know, Mark, it's on you, buddy. As good as you are at making these picks and as good as your record was last year, why do you mess with parlays? Why do you mess with the parlays? Just get the hits, man. Get the wins. And what we're going to do all season long on Fridays, the last segment of the week, to send you off to the weekend, Mark and I are each going to give you our favorite selection of the week in college or pro football. If you'd like, even if you don't have the app or want to bet or you don't like betting, I understand a lot of people don't. Just for your friends that you talk football with, whatever, say, hey, I'll bet you a chili dog that this team beats this team or whatever. And we'll keep track. One of us may be embarrassed by the time it's all said and done. Again, this will be our favorite pick each week that we'll give you on Friday, including coming up at the end of this show. We'll do that. It's all ahead on Uncanceled, where it's just winning, winning, and winning. And I know we've talked a lot about each day. I feel like each day here on Uncanceled for the last month or so, I've presented a story somewhere on the broadcast that is really great news for Republicans and really bad news for Democrats, whether it's a poll or somebody, Stephen Colbert getting fired or this thing happening or that thing happening. It's just every day there is something that shocks us. This week we saw the Target CEO gone. 11 years. This guy started as an intern, worked his way up to the CEO of Target. And after 11 woke years as the CEO of Target, he's been forced out. He resigned, but he was forced out by the board. This was one of the first woke retailers anywhere. And he's toast this week. Target's just not what Target was 15 years ago because they got into politics. They got into a whole bunch of pride sections and charities, and they sponsored marches, and they were visually everywhere that the liberals were. And conservatives over 11 years in the era of Trump, the golden age of Trump, have noticed and said, to hell with Target, I'll go somewhere else. We've seen changes in the media. I mentioned Colbert. We've watched all these different things. MSNBC has changed its name this week. It's one thing after another. But the common theme in all of this is that Donald Trump, over a decade, has put Democrats in the position. How many times have you read a story where they say they went into Trump's trap? Well, no, Trump set a trap. They fell for the trap. He doesn't set a trap. Trump doesn't even think like that. I promise you he doesn't. Trump is just doing things that most Americans like. That's how you get a 54% approval rating, and the Democrats are at 19%. The New York Times this week reported they had they've done all this election, postmortem and analysis. In the 30 states that report the number of people that are affiliated with one party or another, registered with one party or another, there's only 30 states. The other 20 don't. The Democrats are down 2.1 million voters from 2020 to 2024, and the GOP is up 2.4 million. So it's a complete reversal and turnaround. There was an election analyst quoted in the story in the New York Times. His name's Michael Prusser, and he says, quote, "There seems to be no end to this. There is no silver lining. There's no cavalry coming across the hill. This is month after month, year after year for 5 years, and it doesn't look like it's stopping." That's correct. We're in the golden age of information. The rest of us now see, well, you and I probably saw it, but a lot of people voting our way never paid attention, never saw it, didn't know. They didn't know there was an open border. They didn't know there was illegal alien crime. They didn't know all these nefarious things were happening. They didn't realize that the Democrat Party was going to make you wear a mask or take a shot to go to work. They didn't know they were kicking your kids out of school and making them stay home. They didn't know any of this about the Democrats, but the last 5 years, it's all been there. Trump's moves have made the Democrat Party anti-law and order. And this past week, so a week ago today, that Trump and Putin met, he's made them turn into anti-peace. Like they've literally been running, the Democrats all week long, running around, screaming that Trump has failed. He hasn't solved the war. This is his fault. He's bad. He's a terrible president. When we need to help Ukraine more. That's their response. Trump's not getting the job done. We don't give anything any time. He's just got to do it instantly. He met with Putin. It was a disaster for Trump. He failed miserably. We need to follow Europe. Europe's going to tell us to give him more weapons. Maybe we need to fly jets in the sky. All those things. But nothing more than the constant drumbeat of the wall on the southern border. From his very first speech in 2015 that he was running for president, Trump has constantly talked about a wall. A wall is not just a wall. It's symbolic of a nation's integrity and sovereignty. It is a symbol that we are great and you have to earn your way here. You can't just walk across the border and be part of it. The ultimate goat of all the things that have driven the Democrats crazy for them to be against in the minds of the American public is the wall. It doesn't make sense to Americans that we don't have a wall. We don't understand why, if we want to go on a cruise to the Caribbean, we have to go through customs. We have to do it all legally. You want to travel abroad? You got to show your papers. You have to have a passport. You have to do it legally. But we just let people walk in and stay, and we don't know who they are. And yes, the Democrats have lined up now for over a decade and been anti-wall. It's inhumane. And this week, Kristi Noem announced, we're painting it black because the president of the United States says he wants it black, so it's scalding hot in case anybody touches it during the day. This is something that Trump wanted to do in his first term as president and didn't. They called it inhumane. They said if you paint the wall black, kids will touch it and burn their hands. Animals will be hurt. Trump didn't have the appetite for the entire fight the first time. This time, with a 54% popularity rating and the Dems at 19%, Trump's got the appetite for everything. He's Jaws, and he's circling the boat. And the Democrats are going to need a bigger boat for the bite this shark's taking out of them. It is incredible the positions that he's put them in because they hate him so much. It's all just vitriol toward Trump. Trump derangement syndrome. I don't know if there's anything like it in American history. There may have been a time, but these people are literally forced to take positions that are so anti-American and so against the public. And I'm not just talking about Republican voters. I'm talking about some Democrat voters. I know some Democrat voters or people that voted for Obama that ain't voting for that party anymore. They're not. They're like, I don't know this party. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what this is all about. It's all foreign to me. The biggest symbol of all is that wall. It was the ultimate game changer. And the Democrats have been put in a terrible position to stay on the Trump hate train. And they can't get out of their way. I hope it lasts another 3.5 years. There will probably be moments something doesn't go right for Trump. But my goodness, this is absolutely glorious. And watching it just day after day, week after week, month after month, as this election analyst said, we are watching the flipping, basically, of party registration all over the country. And that bodes well for the future. Certainly looking forward to that. All right, we got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to talk a little Chiefs when we come back. It's an interesting matchup they've got tonight with the Chicago Bears. It might be kind of fun for a preseason game. Then Stan Weber will join us. We'll preview K-State, Iowa State, KU, Fresno State, and Mark Van Sickle with all of his picks. It's all straight ahead on this Friday edition, getting you to the weekend, uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio. With so much talk about our professional sports franchises building new stadiums, we've kind of lost sight of the fact that there's a really good football team here in Kansas City named the Chiefs, and tonight is their only preseason game of the year at Arrowhead Stadium. It should be a lot of fun. The starters are going to go. We'll get into more detail over the team, how it's going, and what to expect in this final preseason game tonight. And then it is straight ahead for the Chargers in Brazil coming up in September. But the stadium issue has taken the front page, and now Mark Donovan, the president of the Chiefs, has done an interview with Forbes magazine this week talking about the different possibilities that exist for the Kansas City Chiefs and what they would like to do with a renovated Arrowhead or a new domed stadium in Kansas. And that's the way they're playing this thing at this point. Although I've had all kinds of people talk about what's going on in Buffalo with the stadium there and the possibility in Kansas City to do something either like they saw when they were in Germany a couple of years ago with it's hard to describe the retractable roof there. It's an open-air stadium that has sort of a curtain that on really bad times goes across the top on these cables and will close it up and warm the stadium, and you can have a suitable 50-degree football game when it's freezing cold out. They do that with soccer in different places in Europe. The technology out there is available to everyone. But at this point, Mark Donovan, in his comments to Forbes magazine, is not changing from what they've basically been saying all along, and that is a renovated stadium at Arrowhead or a new domed stadium in Kansas. We still haven't figured out how Missouri is going to get to the 70% that Kansas is offering up. And for the life of me, I can't figure how a renovated Arrowhead Stadium can generate even close to the same amount of revenue as a fully new, functional, modern NFL stadium can generate that we've seen so many other teams around the league build. These teams are getting rich. They're making more money than the Chiefs. The Chiefs' team value is only 16th in the NFL, and it's not because of market size. The Chiefs are the biggest brand out there. They have more fans than anybody in America right now. There's kids all over the country in all 50 states watching Patrick Mahomes, wanting to be a winner, and buying the uniform, the jerseys, the pennants, you name it. They're buying all of it and spending money, and there's people that want to do a pilgrimage to Kansas City and come see a game. That isn't it. There's just not the suites and the revenue-generating possibilities at Arrowhead that exist in a new stadium like most other teams have, including every team in the Chiefs division. So it's interesting to see Donovan stick with the same narrative he's had from the beginning, renovated Arrowhead or brand new domed stadium. And I think we better be prepared for something that will either close or climate control if and when they go to Kansas. I don't think this is close. This is to me, I'm hoping that if I look smart at all in any of this, I've said it a million times, nobody's ever turned down 70%, which is what Kansas is offering up. But I don't think it's even close. I think the revenue opportunities, for goodness sakes, the Royals are leaving. I mean, they just announced from the start, we're out of here. There's not nearly enough opportunity to make money right here as there is somewhere else with a new stadium and an entertainment district around it. That's what we're in it for. There's more money in that. Well, the same is true for the Chiefs. Nobody wants to call them on this. I don't think this is close. I just don't see anybody renovating in pro football, but I guess we'll see. Donovan did another interview this week and is playing his same hand until, I guess, eventually they announce what they have decided. Chiefs versus Bears tonight, 7:20. It's on Channel 41 locally. If you want to check it out on TV, the starters are going to play in this thing. Andy Reid said earlier in the week that the starters will go for sure, and he doesn't know how long. I think he wants to see something crisp and clean out of the starting units. That's the important part. If, let's say, the offense comes out in the first series, marches 70 yards, scores a touchdown, and looks really good doing it, heck, they could all be out of the game. Same thing with the defense. They come out and slam the opponent in 3 plays. They'll probably come back for one more series. But if the starting defense gets 2, 3 and outs, they're probably done for the night. He wants to see a team that looks crisp and sharp. The Chiefs were anything but last week in Seattle. There was nothing clean or sharp about any of it. That's all you want to do in your final preseason game is your best players get some clean minutes in. That's it. Just get some clean football snaps. A lot of talk this season about the wide receiver corps. This is going to be a big thing for the Chiefs. In order of importance, it's Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and then Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown is always hurt, has not really played much. The Chiefs have got $17 million in this guy. We almost never see him. Xavier Worthy is the fastest guy on the team, perhaps, and they're expecting a breakout season. He had a big week because he was talking about Taylor Swift all week because she called him out. Actually, she told a story of watching Xavier Worthy get drafted. She was watching TV, and she told that story on the New Heights podcast. And Xavier Worthy seemed shocked by this. It's like, I can't believe the world's biggest superstar celebrity got excited because I was the draft choice. So you're expecting big things out of Xavier Worthy, but he hasn't proven he can catch the ball. And then Rashee Rice, as you know, got in trouble with the law and is going to get suspended. There's a hearing coming up at the end of September. We know for sure that Rashee Rice will play, if he's healthy, against the Chargers, the Eagles, the Giants, and the Ravens. Then he gets a hearing, and we don't know about the games after that or how many he's going to miss. Andy Reid was asked about this a couple of days ago on how they're preparing for what may happen to Rashee Rice.
Have you heard from the league, and how do you prepare for this unknown period?
Yeah, well, we know, we've heard about the hearing part of it, that part. But then they've got to work all that out. I don't know the details of it. I don't think anybody does right at this minute. So we'll see where it all goes. But we just, when we hear, we'll do what we have to do. So.
Nate?
India, what would you like to see this week out of Hollywood Brown? And is there a chance he could be out there on Friday just to give one sort of dress?
Yeah, so Hollywood did a little work yesterday, and which was good. He'll get a little bit more today, and then we'll just see. We'll see how he progresses through this thing. So, but he wants to. It's not a matter of wanting to be out there. He wants to do it. It's just taking it slow, so we don't want any setbacks with this thing going forward here.
Relatively pragmatic. Andy Reid knows the hearing is set for the end of September, and they'll just have to wait and see what the NFL does. I've said this, it looks almost perfect. If he gets suspended in the middle of the year, if he gets to play these really important games up front, most specifically the Chargers and Ravens because they're in the AFC, but certainly the home opener against the Eagles, Rashee Rice is the most proven playmaker the Chiefs have on offense right now. When he catches the ball, after the catch, he's electric. He can just churn up yards, running the football after he catches it. He is their most important offensive weapon. When they lost him last year, it absolutely hindered the team. No question. I think he's got superstar talent. We'd love to see him play in those important games early. The Chiefs open the season against the Chargers September 5th at 7 o'clock. It's on YouTube. It'll be on local TV here in Kansas City as well. On the injury front this week, as I mentioned, Hollywood Brown is back on the field, which is good. Some guys have their regular bumps and bruises, but Felix Anudike-Uzomah is lost for the year. The defensive end out of Kansas State is going to be out for the season. He has a hamstring injury. Chiefs are ready to go tonight against the Bears, the new-look Bears. They got the offensive coordinator from Detroit, who's very good, become their head coach. And Caleb Williams, the number one draft choice last year at quarterback, has looked really good in the preseason. Chiefs and Bears, 7:20. It's on Channel 41. When Uncanceled continues, we're going to preview a little college football. Can you believe it? 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, K-State, Iowa State. And tomorrow, late afternoon, it's KU hosting Fresno State at their brand new stadium in Lawrence. That's next on KCMO Talk Radio. Welcome back to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Huge college weekend. It's week 0, but it's big locally. Although there's not many big-name teams playing, K-State and KU are playing, and they're both on national TV Saturday with major implications for what they could be this year. For Kansas, it's opening a new stadium, which they'll do at 5:30, the new David Booth Memorial Stadium. It should be wild. This game is on Fox 4 locally, national television against Fresno State. K-State and Iowa State get it all started at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning from Dublin, Ireland in Farm O'Geddon. This game has implications every year for the Big 12 title. This time, instead of playing in November, they're playing in August. What a crazy turnaround for K-State, Iowa State. I had football analyst Stan Weber on my podcast to talk about these games and so much more. The podcast is Kevin Kietzman Has Issues. We've got a chunk to play for you right here. Stan is in Ireland calling the game for the K-State Sports Network, and he previewed first the K-State game, then the KU game, and we start with Stan talking about Iowa State being all the Wildcats can handle as the Cyclones have won 4 of the last 5.
So the story with Iowa State is they've won 4 of the last 5 times against K-State. And when they've been able to do it, it's basically been they play such a clean game that they really stress K-State where K-State normally stresses others. How will the first game be? This is not one of the last games of the year when both teams have completely defined themselves. College coaches are always with their eyes wide open going, what are we going to get in the first game? What about special teams? What about the new players? And then you add in all the other things of it being a big game on the road, 6 hours away in time difference, on a stage, an international stage. There are so many variables, Kevin. I don't know if we're going to see the same Iowa State and K-State teams we saw just a couple games ago. They played the last regular season game against each other.
Yeah.
So this is almost like the NFL playing twice a year. We just played Iowa State, and a lot of the guys are back. The coaching staffs absolutely are intact going against each other. The question I have, am I studying all this Iowa State tape and information thinking I know what I'm going to get in game one? Or is there just throw it all out and see what happens on a first game situation? It's one of the most interesting things. There is no preseason. Which team will play closer to its clean football and play with the most physicality? Remember, they don't tackle much now, Kevin. They don't hit and take each other to the ground hardly at all. All that is going to be on display. You got to play clean football and be physical. Both these teams believe they do it day after day after day, but they're very even, and we'll see who does it best on Saturday.
Okay, all the hype around Kansas State is about the quarterback and the running back and the speed that they possess and the playmaking ability. That's Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards. Kansas State's a 3-point favorite in this game, and I've been trying to figure that out because they've been losing to Iowa State pretty much every year. My gut tells me that people who really know college football are looking at Kansas State and saying this might be the fastest backfield in America when you combine the quarterback and the running back. Are they simply favored because of those two weapons, and people believe that Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards are about to become household names?
Well, I think that's one of the factors, Kevin, because if you took these two teams generally over the last few years and had them switch uniforms, there are a lot of people in the country that wouldn't realize they just switched uniforms. They play with the same style. One play, they'll have 4 wideouts in the shotgun and ready to throw the ball. Next play, they'll have 3 tight ends in a very tight formation and utilize their tight ends, run the ball, play with balance, all these kind of things. Both teams play a similar style. But the one thing that we would throw those two teams into a bunch, Kevin, normally is they aren't going to outrun a lot of the great opponents. Okay, some of their toughest games in the year, you don't go, Iowa State finished in the bowl game against Miami of Florida. And you didn't start going into the game going, oh, boy, Iowa State's speed advantage is going to be a big thing. That's not usually what you say when you talk about Iowa State and K-State, right? That's just not their core. This game here looks a little bit different because K-State does have that capability. K-State came from the biggest deficit they've had in a bowl game, 17 points down, to a Rutgers team that has scored 6 of their first 7 possessions in the bowl game. And Greg Schiano does not lose bowl games. His team was up by 17, dictating the game, Kevin, scoring 6 of the first 7 possessions. Where was K-State going to come back? I'll tell you where, with speed. If they could get into the open area, get some green grass, we'll call it, they could explode and run past those Rutgers players. And you saw it with Dylan Edwards running right up the middle and going 75 yards for a touchdown. Bang. Jace Brown catching the ball deep. K-State had a speed advantage over Rutgers.
That's rare.
And I do believe same thing we see here. When I look at these teams, often they're mirrors of each other. But one difference I see going into this 2025 game is K-State truly has a speed advantage. Just like the Rutgers game, if they can get out in the open field, Iowa State does not have the guys to keep up. Can K-State get those explosive plays? Because most preseasons, Kevin, I know you're highly focused on what K-State football is going to be, and a lot of your friends are talking about it. Rarely do you go into a season talking about K-State and talking about this, that speed factor, but it is really big. Jace Brown, Dylan Edwards, Avery Johnson, those guys can run, and if they can get in open space, they can outrun Iowa State's players.
You're going to be thousands of miles away, but on Saturday afternoon, evening-ish in Lawrence, David Booth Memorial Stadium, the new booth is going to open to 40,000 fans, and I suspect it is going to be one wild scene of a facility that looks absolutely terrific. The Kansas Jayhawks were one of the best teams in the country at the end of last year. They got better as the season went on. They return a quarterback that feels like he's been there forever. Lance Leipold has proven he's a very good coach. Fresno State is coming in. They're their last year in the Mountain West. They go to the Pac-12 next year, and they have Kurt Warner's son as their quarterback. KU's a 12-point favorite in this one. What do you think this scene's going to be like, and how do you like this matchup Saturday?
Well, it's very intriguing because, Kevin, the second game of the year for the Jayhawks, also at home on a Friday night, is against the Wagner Seahawks. Not many people listening to us knew that it was the Wagner Seahawks, okay? That's what you thought a first game would be, but it's not. It's Fresno State. This is a legitimate football team standing out there. They finished 6-7 overall, Kevin, but if you go over the losses that Fresno State had last year, 1 point against Hawaii, 8 points at Air Force, 7 points at UCLA, double overtime loss to Northern Illinois in the bowl game, only 8 points against Washington State. This was a talented football team, and yet they still decided they're going to change their coach and go in another direction. In that direction, first of all, for Fresno State, is they get a guy who was winning at North Dakota State. Now, people around here know the respect level you should have for coaches that win at North Dakota State, right? Kurt Warner's kids have a fight about them. Yeah, his son transferred in. He wasn't at Fresno State last year. So what difference will he make? Fresno State actually wants to kind of run the football to be successful, shorten the clock, because Kansas looks like they're going to be very, very good. Last year was an aberration, a slow start. We talked about how they didn't get a chance to play in their home stadium. That's another reason why when you talked about this, they'll be so excited to be at home. But when Jalen Daniels hit his stride, I thought he made a lot of mistakes early, maybe played with some indifference. But when he got his focus together, Kevin, man, that Kansas team was really good. Thinking about going and beating BYU at BYU, the first time they'd won a conference road game versus a top 10 team since 1995. And then they followed up by beating Colorado and Iowa State.
Wow.
So this is a team, the first team in history. Kansas is the first team in the history of college football to end up with a losing record, a crazy 5-7 record with a lot of close losses, be a sub-500 team and win 3 straight weeks against ranked teams. It's never happened before. So will that momentum carry over, the new stadium carry over? You know, I think there's a very good chance that that's going to happen. Lance Leipold knows they need to bounce back, and Kansas is ready to roll. There's a lot of transfers on the Jayhawks team, Kevin, but, you know, it really does start with quarterback Jalen Daniels. I think a guy that's going to need to play at a high level, and I fully expect him to, is their running back Daniel Highshaw. Devin Neal was incredibly good last year, Kevin, for the Jayhawks, and his whole career. A Lawrence High kid, Lawrence Free State, I think, who turned into a Kansas Jayhawk all-time running back. It's hard to fill his shoes, but I really think that Daniel Highshaw will be able to do that and play at a high level. He needs to run the ball well for Kansas to then be able to throw the ball to these new receivers.
There was a time people thought Highshaw, I think, was the better player. And you know, it didn't, obviously he had injuries and some things didn't work out that way, but this is not just some guy in the backfield. This is an accomplished college player with an awful lot of experience. We talk about the quarterback running back combination. Kansas is right up there. What I'm curious about is Fresno State's attack, because I know they want to run the ball and run the clock. As you said, this is a Mountain West team that is going into the Pac-12, whatever that iteration looks like going forward. I don't know, but Mountain West teams wouldn't typically be known for going into a Big 12 stadium and running the football on a Big 12 defense. How does that matchup work? What type of running game does Fresno State have? Are they coming right at them? Is it deception an option? How does Fresno want to do this? And how big a challenge is that? Because Big 12 defensive linemen are not Mountain West defensive linemen.
Well, it's well said, but I think for those who are kind of trying to place what you just said into another level of realism, is a little bit like, remember when Kansas played UNLV last year? That's like Fresno State. You know, UNLV was hitting on all cylinders and hopefully better than Fresno State would be on Saturday night against Kansas, but still is one of those games where KU was the better team all game long, but they made a mistake here or there and let UNLV stay in the game. And then they finally put together, a 10-minute drive to slowly go down the field. But Fresno State can talk about what they want to do running the football. You bring up a good point, though. That's really just an entree or an appetizer. They're not going to win the game running the ball against Kansas's front. You can't do that. Yeah, they need to convert on some third and shorts, you know, second and long, get an 8-yard run to set up a third and short, and those kind of things. Convert on third down a little bit, I'll give you that. But to go win this game, E.J. Warner, Kurt Warner's son, is going to have to throw the ball effectively. That's how you beat Big 12 teams. Yeah. He's going to have to make those passes. They may not call a lot of passes, Kevin. They'd rather not. But the pressure you have when you throw only 25 passes compared to throwing 40 passes is immense on a quarterback. Does that make sense? When you only get 25 throws, you have got to make hay. And so I really think it's going to come down to how well they can do on that third down, throwing the football. And the running game is something they'd love to talk about, but that's not going to win the game against KU. And then just got to hold on and hope that they can get some turnovers and Kansas's offense just isn't on fire, because if Kansas's offense gets going under Jalen Daniels, you're talking about one of the highest scoring offenses in college football in the last 4 years, Kevin. Highest. Not just, pretty good. You're talking about yards per play that are record-breaking level. The yards per play that Kansas has had in most of the last 3 years, Kevin, could be records for schools all time. If you just said, how does that compare to school X? And you go, oh, that would be the greatest year ever. That's the kind of offense Kansas has played. You cut out the mistakes they had last year, and they are very, very good on offense. So it's likely that Kansas is going to score a lot of points, and Fresno State's going to hope they can run the clock and stay in the game. But it's not likely. I think Kansas will be fired up. How excited would you be, Kevin?
Yeah, I was just going to say.
If you were a player to play at home for the first time in 2 years.
They haven't had a home game since November of 23. They didn't have any last year. These kids are going to be fired up, and that stadium's going to be wild. It just seems like a perfect situation.
It should be. But, again, I will point out of respect, first games are scary. You don't know exactly what you're going to get, and this isn't Wagner. If they would reverse the orders of these, they would have beat Wagner 50-7, and then they would have played Fresno State and beat them by 3 touchdowns. This becomes more interesting as a general football fan, Kevin, and for the Fox network. They're on a big box on television. It becomes a little more intriguing that Fresno State's a legitimate football team. They're not a bunch of bums out there.
That is Stan Weber on what should be a wild night in Lawrence. Uncanceled is brought to you by our friends at bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind. If you'd like to get your house moved and sold quickly with no showings, no realtor, no cleanup, no repairs, bestofferkc.com is there for you. They'd love to meet with you, a family member, or anyone you know that you need to recommend that needs to move quickly, whether it's a health scare, an issue, or they've got to move, or some sort of a personal thing. If you need to move your house quickly, a lot of homes sell off-market and without a realtor. That's bestofferkc.com. They do it with great compassion. They even lend money to folks before closing if they need it. That's 816-338-SOLD. That's 816-338-SOLD for bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind. Welcome back to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're going to have some fun with our man, Mark Van Sickle, who's got great shows every Saturday and Sunday right here on KCMO Talk Radio with sports betting lines. If you love the football, we're going to have some fun every Friday with Mark. We're each going to give you our favorite pick of the week, and you can track that. Mark will track them all year. You'll know which one of us is best at this, and if you want to take our suggestions of what our favorite play is each week, feel free. If not, this is just for entertainment purposes only. That's all we're doing. But Mark was ridiculously good at this last year. Mark, welcome to the show, as always. What was your record last year in college football?
Last year for the regular season, I went 113-81 against the spread.
What?
So that's not too bad.
Not too bad. That's iconic. That's stratospheric.
I just kept track of them. You can see I'm showing you right here through the glass. There's the record each week. A few losing weeks, but mostly pretty good winning weeks.
That's insane.
Not bad. Bowl season was even better, though. Went 30-12 against the spread in bowl season, including the college football playoff, which I made a lot of money off that last year.
Wow. Okay, so in the NFL is its own unique beast, and it's very, very hard. But what's your strategy in college? What do you look for generally?
I just look for the first couple weeks are usually pretty tough just because you're trying to figure out what's going on with each team. The transfer portal's been making it a little bit tougher, especially bowl season is – I was shocked that I did well in bowl season because just trying to get with the transfer portal, people leaving before their bowl games and stuff, I was really surprised I did well there. But for college football season, it's just trying to find teams that you think are going to have a good week. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, but I just really hit last year.
You got a thing. I know that. All right, so the Chiefs play in the preseason tonight. They're a 3-point favorite in most services right now over the Bears. I don't bet on preseason. I can't imagine anybody does, but let's take a moment. Your thoughts. I gave my thoughts earlier in the show. What are your thoughts on the Chiefs tonight with the Bears?
I hate the -3 line because then it can be a field goal in the push. So I like to go -2.5 if possible.
You move the line?
Yeah, I move it just a tiny bit or find a line that you can get it at -2.5.
Sportsbooks love you doing that, man.
Oh, yeah.
They got to pay that extra juice. All right, the big one this weekend, there's only 5 college football games. This is called Week 0. Kansas State, Iowa State, 11 o'clock Saturday from Dublin, Ireland. The Wildcats, not very good in this game the last few years against Iowa State, but they're a 3-point favorite. What say you, Mark?
I do like the Wildcats.
You do?
I do. I have a friend who's a K-State fan who thinks Iowa State's going to win, but I like Avery Johnson. I think he's going to come out and be a better runner this year. They didn't let him run wild last year. I think they're going to let him loose a little bit.
So I like Avery Johnson, too. I think the problem for Kansas State is they don't play as clean of football as Iowa State typically does. That's why they've lost these games. K-State makes mistakes. Iowa State doesn't. I think that'll probably hold. I'm going to go with Iowa State and take the 3 points.
All right.
I'll go ahead and take that one.
Opposite on that one.
All right. Kansas is where each week we're going to have a favorite pick of the week. Kansas is a 12.5-point favorite, and this one's mine.
Okay.
All right, that's my play of the week. KU 12.5. Fresno State wants to run the ball in this game. They're a Mountain West team. I think they'll have trouble slowing the tempo of this game down. I think they'll have trouble getting first downs running it. I think the stadium is going to be electric. This team hasn't played a home game since November of 23. I think Kansas runs away with this one. I think they're going to go big, something like 52-28.
Yeah, I think they're going to win big in this one. I'd take the over on the points as well as you have, it seems like. So that's a good one. I think KU wins it big.
So there's my first play of the week. And you found a gem for your play of the week. And this is the last start of the night, 6:30 on, I think it's on CBS or CBS Sports Network.
CBS, yes.
We're going out west. What do you got?
I've got Hawaii -2.5. That's my lock of the week. They started as a 10-point favorite in the offseason. The line just slowly keeps moving. Now, Andrew Luck's the general manager at Stanford now. They've got the new head coach, former NFL coach. And I don't know. I don't think that Stanford's going to have it right at the beginning of the season. They'll get better as it goes along, but in week 1 at Hawaii, I think that Hawaii gets it, covers by at least a field goal.
The Rainbows. How many times have you stayed up until 1 in the morning at home watching a Hawaii game?
I usually do it at the beginning of the season.
At the beginning,
yeah,
and then it
before
wears
I get
off?
tired. Yeah,
We football fans get more tired as the season goes on, right?
yeah.
All right, tell me about your shows that you have on Friday and Saturday. Everybody's going to be listening to on 95.7.
Yeah, so College Pick'em program, that's coming back starting tomorrow, 7 a.m. All season long, it's going to be podcasts as well. Just search for the College Pick'em program. And I like to go first half of the show, Big 12 games, local games, KU, K-State, Mizzou. And then second half of the show, I like to do the big national games of the week. And so I'm just picking against the spread all season long.
Wow, that sounds like a really great time that you have. And on your record speaks for itself, which is incredible. And you're mostly a Kansas fan in college in the Big 12?
Yeah.
What's Nebraska? You're from Washington. How many teams do you have?
I have way too many teams. But Nebraska is my mom's side of the family. They
Okay.
all live in the Omaha area. But I've been covering KU for Heartland College Sports for the last 3 years, so that's why I kind of lean towards KU.
All right, so would you rather KU win the Big 12 in football or basketball?
Basketball.
See, that you
Yeah.
got to get. You got a new stadium, man. You got a billionaire giving $300 million. You got to jump on this football thing.
It's going to be fun. I'm going to actually be out there tomorrow for the first game. So I'm going to be out there covering it for Heartland College Sports. It should be a fun time.
I think it's going to be electric. Have a great time with the Pick'em Show this year, and let's have some fun on Friday. See if we can get some winners for our listeners.
Sounds great.
He is Mark Van Parlay. To recap, we're doing a pick of the week each and every week. I've got Kansas -12.5. I think the environment's going to be wild. It's too much for Fresno. And he's going with the Hawaii Rainbows as a 2.5-point favorite to cover that number against Stanford. Pretty good stuff. Thanks for listening to Uncanceled. The Vince Show is coming up next on KCMO.